I felt it the exact moment the candlestick connected with his skull. A dull thud, like snapping a branch. I watched his knees buckle and his body fall forward. There were no screams, no pleas, just that sound, and then silence. I killed Father Jeremiah with my own hands, and you know what the sickest part of it is. The next day, I carried his casket at his funeral, while everyone cried for the man they called a saint. Have you ever hated someone so much that the mere sight of them breathing burns you from the inside? Have you ever wanted to scream a truth, and absolutely no one, not a single soul would believe you? I have, and that's what turned me into what I am now. I need to tell this because I can't hold it in anymore. I've been keeping this secret for months, and every Sunday when I go to Mass and see his photo hanging at the church entrance with the phrase, "Rest in peace, faithful servant of God," something inside me twists. Everyone remembers him as a martyr, as the best father our parish ever had. But I know the truth. I know who he really was and what I did well. You'll judge if it was right or wrong. But I warn you, this story isn't what you expect. Nothing is. My name is Jamal. I'm 16 years old, and until a few months ago, I was St. Michael Archangel Parish's favorite altar boy. Yeah, the typical good kid who helps with Mass, does charity work, the one the whole community adores. My mom is super Catholic, one of those who goes to Mass every day, not just Sundays. Ever since my dad died, when I was 11, religion became her refuge, and I, being her only son, now became her pride within the church. I literally grew up in that parish. My first memories are playing in the hallways while my mom arranged the altar flowers. I made my first communion there, my confirmation, everything. Father Jeremiah arrived when I was 12, and from the first moment, everyone fell in love with him. He was young for a priest, about 35, charismatic, always with a smile, always with the right words for everyone. My mom said it was a blessing that God had sent us such a dedicated shepherd. I thought so too at first. It was him who suggested I become an altar boy. He told me I had something special, that God had put me in his path for a reason. I felt important, chosen. I started staying after Masses to help him tidy the sacristy count, the offerings, prepare everything for the next ceremony. My mom was happy. I was happy. Everything seemed perfect until it stopped being perfect. I was 13 the first time it happened. 13. It was a Friday night after the healing Mass. Everyone else had left. I was putting the chalices away in the sacristy cabinet when he walked in and locked the door. I remember freezing. Something in his gaze was different that night. He told me we needed to talk about something important, something only I could understand. He spoke of love, God's special love, how I was chosen to receive that love in a unique way. I'm not going into graphic details of what he did. I can't. But what I will tell you is that when he finished, I was trembling, crying, not understanding what had happened. He hugged me. He told me it was normal to feel confused at first, that it was part of the spiritual journey, that this was what God wanted from me, that I was special, that there was a sacred bond between us that no one else could understand. And the worst part is, I believed him. I was 13, a child. He was my spiritual guide, the person my mom blindly trusted. How could I doubt him? He convinced me that what happened between us was normal, was holy. He made me believe that if I spoke, no one would believe me, that I would hurt my mom, that I would destroy the community, that I was to blame for provoking him with my very being. For 2 years I lived in that hell. 2 years where every Friday after Mass I stayed with him. 2 years where I smiled on Sundays while serving at the altar, while everyone commented on what a devoted altar boy I was. 2 years where I came home and showered until the water ran cold, trying to wash away that feeling of dirtiness that never left. But I kept it a secret. I swallowed it all because he was right about one thing. No one would believe me. He was Father Jeremiah, the community saint. I was just a confused teenager. Everything changed when Marcus arrived. Marcus is 12. His parents had just moved into the neighborhood and started attending our parish. He's a shy, quiet kid, one of those who always keeps his gaze on the ground. Father Jeremiah approached him after a Mass and asked if he wanted to be an altar boy. Marcus's parents almost cried with emotion. They said it was a blessing that the father was interested in their son, that it would help him open up more, make friends. I saw it all from afar, and something broke inside me. I knew exactly what was going to happen. I knew it. I could see it in the way the father looked at Marcus, and how he put his hand on his shoulder, and how he smiled. It was the same damn smile he used on me, the same words, the same game. Over the next few weeks, I tried to always be close by when Marcus was at church. I made excuses to stay longer, so the father would never be alone with him, but I couldn't be there all the time. I had school, I had homework, I had my life, And the father was smart. He knew how to create opportunities. One Wednesday, I left school early because we had a meeting. I stopped by the church to drop off some things my mom had asked for and saw Marcus coming out of the sacristy. He was crying. He quickly wiped away his tears as if he was afraid someone would see him. Our eyes met for a second, and in his eyes, I saw the same terror I had felt at his age. I followed him to the exit. I asked him if he was okay. He said yes, that he was just tired, but his voice was trembling. I told him he could trust me, that if anything happened to him, I would understand. He was silent for a few seconds. He looked at me as if evaluating whether to tell me or not, and then he shook his head and ran off. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus's face. I saw my own face at 13. I saw all the damage Father Jeremiah had caused and would continue to cause. And the worst part was that no one was doing anything because no one knew anything. Or maybe they did know, and they preferred not to see. The next day, I made the most difficult decision of my life. I was going to tell my mom. I arrived home after school determined to do it. She was in the kitchen preparing dinner. I sat at the table, and the words just wouldn't come out. How do you tell your mom that the man she considers a saint has been abusing you for years? How do you destroy her faith like that? Finally, I blurted it out. I told her I needed to talk about something serious about Father Jeremiah. She stopped what she was doing and sat across from me with a worried expression. I took a deep breath and began to tell her. I told her that the father had done things to me, things that weren't right, that he had been hurting me. I didn't even get halfway through the story. My mom stood up from the table as if I had burned her. Her face went from worry to anger in seconds. She told me how dared I invent such absurdities about a man of God, that I was an embarrassment, that it was surely the influence of those friends I have, of those things I see on the internet, that Father Jeremiah was a saint, and that I was being manipulated by the devil to defame him. I tried to explain. I begged her to listen, but she wouldn't. She told me to go to my room to pray for forgiveness for thinking such disgusting things, and that she didn't want to hear another word about it, that the next day we would go to confession together with the Father, to cleanse my soul of those lies. I locked myself in my room and cried until I fell asleep. My own mother didn't believe me. The only person who was supposed to protect me had turned her back, but I didn't give up. If my mom didn't believe me, maybe someone else would. I thought of Chloe, my best friend, since elementary school. She's not Catholic. Her family is more atheist. So I thought maybe she would listen to me without that filter of blind adoration towards the Father. The next day at school, I asked her if we could talk privately. We sat on the bleachers by the basketball court, away from everyone, and I told her everything, absolutely everything. Chloe listened to me in silence. When I finished, I waited for her reaction. I waited for her to tell me she believed me, that we were going to report him, that she was on my side. Instead, she asked if I was sure about what I was saying. I told her yes. How could I invent something like that? And then she said something that shattered me even more than my mom's rejection. She told me she knew Father Jeremiah, that her mom had gone to therapy with him when they were going through family problems, and that he had been incredible, super professional, and respectful, that it didn't fit with what I was describing, that maybe I had misinterpreted his intentions, that maybe I was confused, that teenagers sometimes confuse affection with something else, that maybe I needed to talk to a psychologist. I couldn't believe it. My best friend didn't believe me either. I asked her what explanation she had for Marcus, then for that child. I saw crying coming out of the sacristy. Chloe shrugged and said that children cry for many reasons, that maybe he had a bad day, that I was projecting my own insecurities onto normal situations. I got up and left. There was nothing else to say. For the next few days, I was like a zombie. I went to school, came home, ate, slept, repeated. My mom acted as if our conversation had never happened. She spoke to me normally. She told me that on Sunday we had to go to Mass early because the father needed extra help, like nothing. The following Friday was the healing Mass again. My mom forced me to go help. She said it was my duty, my responsibility to the community. I couldn't refuse without raising suspicion, so I went. After Mass, while I was putting things away, Father Jeremiah approached me. He told me my mom had told him about our conversation. My heart stopped. He told me he understood that I was confused, that adolescence was a difficult stage, that sometimes the mind plays tricks on us, that he forgave me for thinking those things, that he would pray for me. And then with that damn smile, he added, "Marcus is a wonderful child, isn't he? So pure, so innocent. I'm so happy to guide him on his spiritual path, just as I guided you. It's a blessing to have such special sheep." I felt my blood boil. He was doing it again, and this time, he was saying it openly, knowing that I couldn't do anything, that no one would believe me. It was his way of rubbing it in my face, his way of telling me, You're powerless. You can't stop me. That night, lying in my bed, I made a decision. If no one was going to stop him, if no one was going to believe me, if the authorities weren't going to do anything, then I would. I would stop him the only way I could be sure he wouldn't hurt anyone else. I was going to kill Father Jeremiah, and on Monday, I started planning exactly how I would do it, because it was no longer about revenge. It was about protecting Marcus. It was about preventing more victims. It was about getting justice when the world refused to do it. What follows is the complete truth, what really happened that night. And I swear to you that after hearing it all, you won't know if I'm a hero or a monster. The plan was simple, but required patience. I knew that every Thursday night, Father Jeremiah stayed alone in the church, doing the weekly counting of offerings. He kept everything in a safe in the sacristy. He always did it alone, because he said it was a responsibility only he could handle, that it was a matter between God and him. Now I know it was actually because he used that time for other things. Things I would find later that would chill me to the bone. For 2 weeks, I studied his routine, what time he arrived, which door he locked, how long he stayed, what route he took. I memorized every detail. I also started looking for the perfect object. I needed something blunt, something that would look accidental afterward. The church's brass candlesticks were perfect heavy, always there. And if one fell during a struggle, no one would suspect. But here's the sick part. It wasn't cold premeditation. A part of me still hoped something would change, that someone would do something that I wouldn't have to go that far. I kept going to Mass, kept being the perfect altar boy, kept smiling while inside, I was consumed until I saw the new photos on the Father's phone. It was an accident. We were in the sacristy organizing things for Sunday Mass. His phone rang, and he asked me to hand it to him because his hands were full. As I picked it up, the screen lit up with a notification, and there on the lock screen, I saw a photo of Marcus in the sacristy crying with his shirt half off. The phone almost slipped from my hands. The Father quickly took it, locked the screen, and told me in a soft voice, "The photos are memories of special moments with my favorite sheep, nothing more." That was the moment. That was the damn moment I knew there was no turning back. He wasn't just abusing Marcus. He was documenting it as if they were trophies, as if we were objects in his personal collection. That same night, I decided it would be the following Thursday. I couldn't wait any longer. Every day that passed was another day Marcus suffered. Every day was another day that monster walked free, protected by his title and everyone's ignorance. Thursday arrived faster than I expected. I went to school as usual. Chloe asked me if I was okay, because I looked pale. I told her I was just tired. In history class, we were studying the Inquisition, and the teacher talked about how the church had committed atrocities in the name of God for centuries. The irony was not lost on me. After class, I went straight home. My mom was making bread to sell at Sunday's bake sale. She asked me if I was going to help the Father that night with the counting. I told her yes, that he had asked me to come around 9 when no one else was there. She smiled proudly and kissed my forehead. "You're a wonderful son, Jamal. The Father is very lucky to have a helper like you." If she only knew. If she only knew. I left home at 8:30. I was wearing a black hoodie and gloves I had bought at the market. I wasn't going to leave fingerprints. I walked slowly towards the church, rehearsing every step in my mind. The church was in shadows, except for the lights in the sacristy. Perfect, all according to plan. I knocked on the side door, the one we altar boys always used. The Father opened it with a smile. "Jamal, good of you to come. There's a lot to count today. People have been very generous this week." I entered. He closed the door, but didn't lock it. We walked towards the sacristy. He was ahead talking about Sunday Mass, about how he needed me to take care of certain things, because he was going to be busy with Marcus, helping him prepare for his first communion. Every word he said gave me more reasons for what I was about to do. We arrived at the sacristy. On the table were stacks of bills, coins, donation envelopes. He sat down and started counting. I stood behind him looking at the candlesticks on the shelf next to the door. One in particular caught my eye. It was the largest, the heaviest. We used it only for special ceremonies. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought he would hear it. My hands were sweating inside my gloves. For a moment I hesitated. For a moment, I thought of running out of there and forgetting the whole plan. But then he said something that ended any doubt I might have had. "You know, Jamal, Marcus reminds me a lot of you when you first arrived. That same innocence, that same need to be guided. It's beautiful to see how God puts these pure souls who need my special love in my path. And the best part is that his parents trust me completely, just like your mom trusts me, just like everyone trusts, because I'm untouchable. I'm a man of God. I can do whatever I want, and no one will ever stop me." He laughed. That son of a bitch laughed. And in that moment, something broke inside me. I walked towards the shelf, as if to take a Bible. I picked up the candlestick. It was heavier than I remembered. The father was still with his back to me, counting someone else's money, oblivious to everything. I took 2 steps towards him. I raised the candlestick above my head and brought it down with all the force I could muster. The impact was brutal. The sound his skull made as it fractured is something I will never forget. A dull crunch followed by a choked gasp. His body slumped forward onto the table, knocking bills to the floor. Blood began to gush from his head, staining his black cassock, making it look even darker. But he wasn't dead. He was still breathing, still moving weakly. And that's the part that turns me into whatever I am now. Because I didn't stop. I raised the candlestick again and struck again. And again I struck, until he stopped moving, until he stopped breathing, until there was no doubt he was dead. When I finally stopped, my hoodie was splattered with blood. The candlestick too. The sacristy looked like a crime scene from a movie. And I was standing there looking at what I had done, feeling no remorse. I only felt relief, but I couldn't just stand there. I had to act fast. I wiped the candlestick with his own cassock, leaving only his fingerprints. Then with great effort, I dragged his body out of the sacristy into the hallway that leads to the church basement. There are some very steep stairs there that had always been dangerous. More than one person had slipped there before. I positioned him on the first step and pushed him. His body rolled down the stairs with a horrible noise, hitting each step until it lay at the bottom at an angle that definitely looked like the result of an accidental fall. The blood on his head could now be attributed to the impact with the steps. I went back to the sacristy. I cleaned any traces of blood on the floor with rags, which I then threw into a bag I had hidden. I reorganized the money on the table as if he had been working normally. I took the candlestick and put it back in its place. Everything had to look normal. Before leaving, I checked every detail 3 times. There could be no mistakes. Finally, I left through the side door, making sure to lock it from the outside, using the key I knew where they kept. I walked back home through the dark streets with the bag of rags that I would later burn in the vacant lot near my house. When I arrived, my mom was still awake watching television. She asked me how it had been with the father. I told her, good that we had finished early. I went to my room, burned the rag, showered 3 times, and got into bed. And here's the most disturbing part. I slept. I slept like I hadn't slept in years, without nightmares, without waking up at midnight, with panic attacks. For the first time in a long time, I slept in peace. The next day, my phone rang early. It was Chloe screaming hysterically. Jamal, Father Jeremiah is dead. They found him in the church. He fell down the stairs. I can't believe it. Everyone is devastated. I had to act surprised. I told her it couldn't be true, that I had been with him last night, and he was fine, that I was going to the church immediately. I got dressed quickly and left. My mom already knew from the parish WhatsApp group. She was crying inconsolably, saying it couldn't be true that God couldn't have taken her shepherd. When we arrived at the church, there were police cars, ambulances, community members crying outside. They wouldn't let us in. A police officer was taking statements. I stood there hugging my mom while she sobbed, watching them carry the father's body out on a stretcher covered with a white sheet. Chloe was there too, hugging other people from the parish. When she saw me, she ran to me and hugged me, crying. He was so young, so good. It's not fair. It's not fair. I patted her back, telling her everything would be okay, that the father would be with God now. The words came out automatically, as if someone else were saying them. The police talked to everyone. When they asked me, I told them the truth, that I had been there the night before or helping him with the counting, that I had left around 9:30, that he was perfectly fine, that those stairs had always been dangerous, that I wasn't surprised someone would slip there. I didn't even have to lie much. Everything fit perfectly, too perfectly. Listen, I know this is really intense. I know maybe you're thinking I'm a psychopath or something, but I need you to understand. I'm not a serial killer. I don't enjoy killing. What I did because it was the only option I had left. And if you're listening to this and you've experienced something similar, if someone has hurt you and no one believes you, I want you to know that I understand you, that you're not alone, that sometimes the world is unfair and people turn a blind eye to evil because it's more comfortable to believe in goodness. But before you decide if what I did was right or wrong, before you judge me, you need to hear the rest, because what I discovered afterward, that changes everything. And that's where this story really gets dark. If you've made it this far, give me a like and subscribe. I promise you what's coming next will chill you to the bone. Seriously, make sure to click the subscribe button below the video, the one with the bell icon. You need it, because every day we upload stories like this, real stories that no one else dares to tell. And believe me, you'll want to be here for the next ones, because what happened after the funeral was something I never expected. Father Jeremiah's funeral was 3 days later. It was massive. People came from all over the city, priests, from other parishes, even the bishop came to give the service. Everyone spoke of him as if he had been a saint, an exemplary servant of God, a man who dedicated his life to helping others, a light in times of darkness. I wanted to scream the truth in the middle of the church, but obviously I couldn't. The worst part was when they asked me to be one of the pallbearers. Along with 5 other altar boys, I had to carry the body of the man I killed. I had to walk slowly down the central aisle of the church while everyone cried and prayed. I felt the weight of the coffin on my shoulder, and I couldn't help but think, this is surreal. I'm carrying my abuser, my victim, and everyone thinks I'm devastated. My mom didn't stop crying throughout the entire ceremony. Chloe organized a vigil that night where hundreds of people brought candles and sang religious songs. They put a giant photo of the father at the church entrance with fresh flowers that people changed every day. He became an instant martyr, and I had to continue with my normal life, go to school, do homework, smile, act as if I was grieving. The biggest performance of my life. 2 weeks after the funeral, the substitute father arrived. He was an older man, less charismatic, but equally devoted. The church slowly returned to normal. Well, as normal as it could after losing its favorite pastor. I continued to be an altar boy. My mom insisted. She said it was what Father Jeremiah would have wanted, that I continue to serve God in his honor. Ironic, isn't it? One Thursday afternoon, I was alone in the church, organizing the hymnals, when I remembered something. The confessional. The father always kept personal things in the priest's confessional, in a small hidden compartment under the seat. Once I saw him put his favorite rosary in there. I don't know what prompted me to check. Perhaps curiosity, perhaps the need to confirm that I had done the right thing. I entered the priest's side of the confessional and looked for the secret compartment. It was locked with a small padlock, but it was old and flimsy. I forced it open with a coin. What I found inside chilled me to the bone. There was a metal box. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside were Polaroid photos, dozens of them. Photos of children, of teenagers. Some I recognized. They were altar boys who had been in the parish years ago. Others I didn't know, but they all had something in common. They were in compromising situations, some crying, some with disheveled clothes, some with empty, lost gazes. And there were photos of me. Photos I didn't know existed, photos he had taken during those moments in the sacristy. I felt nauseous. I had to leave the confessional and vomit in the bathroom. When I recovered, I went back and continued searching the box. There was more. A diary. I opened it to a random page and started reading. It was his personal diary, and in it, he described in detail every encounter he had had with children over the years. He described them as if they were romantic conquests, as if they were consensual relationships. He used religious terms to justify his actions. He spoke of special sheep, divine love, sacred teachings. There were entries from 10 years ago, 10 years documenting his abuses, as if they were something beautiful. And then I found something that devastated me more than anything else. An entry from 5 years ago. An entry about a boy named Elijah, my younger brother. My brother, who died at age 9 in what everyone said was an accident. He fell from a tree in the park and hit his head, or so we were told. But according to this diary, Elijah had been one of his sheep too. And the last entry about him read, Elijah threatened to tell his parents, I cannot allow him to destroy everything I have built here. He was a problematic child. It's better this way. The Lord will understand. My brother didn't die by accident. Father Jeremiah killed him, and everyone believed it was an accident. I sat there on the confessional floor, with that diary in my hands, crying in silence. My little brother had suffered the same thing I did, and when he tried to defend himself, they killed him, and I knew nothing. No one knew anything. How many more children had been victims? How many more had he harmed? I counted the photos. There were at least 7 different children. 7 that I could see. How many more without a photo? How many more without a record? And the worst part is everyone remembered him as a saint. His photo was still at the church entrance. People were still praying for his soul. He was still the beloved Father Jeremiah in all conversations. I took the entire box, hid it under my hoodie, and left the church. I couldn't leave that evidence there. I had to do something with it, but I didn't know what. If I handed it over to the police, questions would arise. They would investigate, and maybe they would discover what I did to him. But if I did nothing, all those victims would remain without justice. They would remain without anyone knowing their truth. I arrived home and hid the box in my room, deep in my closet. My mom was in the kitchen. She acted as if nothing had happened. We ate dinner together. She talked about how much she missed the father, about how the church wasn't the same without him. Every word of hers was like a knife. I wanted to scream at her, show her the box, make her see who that man really was, but I couldn't. No. I still had to think carefully about how to handle this. That night, I couldn't sleep. I read the entire diary. Each entry was worse than the previous one. There were details of how he manipulated the children, how he gained the trust of families, how he used his position to have unlimited access to his victims. He was methodical. He was an expert predator who had perfected his technique over a decade. And no one suspected anything because he was a priest. Because people don't want to believe that men of God can be monsters. The next day was Friday. There was a healing mass that night. My mom asked me to go help. I said I didn't feel well, that I had a headache. She insisted. She said going to mass would make me feel better, that prayer was the best medicine. I went, but this time, I observed everything differently. I observed the new altar boys, including Marcus. I saw him serve at the altar, smile at the congregation, do everything perfectly. But I also noticed something I hadn't seen before. When mass ended and people started leaving, Marcus's parents approached the new substitute father and thanked him for taking such good care of their son. They told him they noticed a positive change in Marcus since he started helping at the church, that he seemed happier. Marcus was standing there, and for the first time, I noticed that he was truly smiling, a genuine smile. He no longer had that lost look I saw weeks ago. He no longer looked scared. I had saved him. My action, however terrible, had saved Marcus from continued abuse and probably saved future children as well. But that didn't make everything okay. I was still a killer. I still had to live with that secret. And now, I had evidence of all the father's victims' evidence I didn't know what to do with. Days passed, then weeks. Life continued. The father's photo was still in the church. People still talked about him fondly, and I kept smiling, nodding, acting. Until one night, my mom knocked on my bedroom door. It was around 11 at night. She entered without waiting for an answer. She looked serious. She had something in her hands. "Jamal, what is this?" she asked, and she showed me one of the Polaroid photos. My heart stopped. She had found the box. I don't know how. I don't know when, but she had found it. "Mom, I can explain." I started, but she raised her hand to silence me. "Explain to me why you have photos of Father Jeremiah with children who clearly are." She couldn't finish the sentence. Her hands were trembling as she held the photo. I sat on my bed. There was no point in lying anymore. I told her everything. I showed her the diary. I showed her all the photos. I told her about what happened to me. And finally, I told her about Elijah. When I got to the part about Elijah, my mom collapsed. She fell to the floor, crying, screaming, denying everything. But the evidence was there. The diary said it clearly. Her younger son had been murdered by the man she blindly trusted. We stayed awake all night. She cried. I cried. We both processed years of pain in those hours. She apologized for not believing me the first time. She hugged me and told me it was her fault, that she should have protected me, that she should have investigated more when Elijah died. And then I confessed the last thing. I told her that I killed Father Jeremiah, that it wasn't an accident. I waited for her reaction. I expected her to yell at me, to call the police, to reject me. Instead, she looked me straight in the eyes for a moment that felt eternal, and then said, "Good." Just that. Good. She explained that as a mother, she should have protected us, that she failed with Elijah, that she almost failed with me, that if I hadn't done what I did, more children would have suffered, that although she wasn't proud that I had had to go to that extreme, she understood why I did it. "But this evidence," she said, pointing to the box, "this evidence has to come to light. The other victims deserve for the truth to be known. They deserve justice, even if it's posthumous." She was right, but there was a problem. If we handed over that evidence, the authorities would thoroughly investigate the father's death, and they might discover that it wasn't an accident. They might discover what I did. My mom thought about it for a moment. Then she said something I never expected to hear from her. "Then we'll make it anonymous. We'll leave it where someone will find it. But first." She stood up, took the diary and the photos, and walked towards the door. "First, we need to make sure no one can trace it back to you. Let's go to the yard." I followed her. In the backyard, she lit the brazier we use for barbecues. She took the diary, opened it to the page about Elijah, tore it out, read it once more, and then threw it into the fire. "This cannot exist," she said. "If the police read that the father killed Elijah, they will investigate that case again and might connect dots we don't want them to connect." She was right. We burned those specific pages, but left the rest of the diary and all the photos intact. The other victims needed their justice. 2 days later, my mom found the box in a confessional in the church. She screamed hysterically. People came running. The new father immediately called the police. All hell broke loose. The news exploded. Local priest abused multiple minors for years. Read the headlines. The families of the victims in the photos came forward to give statements. Other adults who had been altar boys years ago also began to speak to tell their own stories. The scandal was massive. They removed the father's photo from the church. His name was erased from all commemorative plaques. The bishop gave a public speech asking for forgiveness on behalf of the church. Chloe called me crying, apologizing for not believing me, saying she felt horrible. The community was in shock. Many people stopped going to church. Others, including my mom, began to question their faith. How could God allow this to happen? How could he allow a monster to serve in his name for so long? I don't have the answers. No one does. What I do know is that Marcus is okay. His parents took him out of the parish and got him therapy. He's healing. The other victims are also getting help. And while nothing can erase the harm the father did to them, at least now the truth is out. It's no longer a dark secret that only they carry. And I live with what I did. I live knowing that I killed a man, that I planned it, that I executed it, that I will never be judged for it because everyone believes it was an accident. Do I regret it? No. Would I do it again? Yes, without hesitation. Because sometimes justice doesn't come from the system. Sometimes it doesn't come from the authorities or the church or the adults who are supposed to protect you. Sometimes the only way to get justice is to take it into your own hands. I know this is controversial. I know many will say I should have pushed harder, that I should have found another way. And maybe they're right. Maybe I'm a killer who justifies himself. Maybe I'm as bad as him, but I don't believe it. I acted to protect. He acted to destroy. I saved lives. He ruined them. I gave voice to his victims even if it was after his death. He silenced them. And if that makes me a villain in some people's eyes, then so be it. I can live with that. What I couldn't have lived with is doing nothing while he continued to hurt children. Today I still go to Mass. Yes, it's strange, but now I go differently. I don't go out of obligation or for my mom. I go because I need to understand. I need to process everything that happened. I need to make sense of how faith can be used for good and for evil. Sometimes I sit in the pews and look at the altar and think of all the things that happened there, all the children who suffered my brother, me, Marcus. And I wonder if God was there, if he saw us, if he cared. I don't have answers, only questions, and a secret I will take to my grave. Well, until today. Today I told you, whoever is listening to this, because I needed to get it out. I needed someone to know the complete truth, not the edited version everyone knows, not the story of the tragic accident, but the real truth of what happened. And now that you know everything, what do you think? Am I a hero who protected innocence? Or am I a killer who justifies himself with good intentions? Is there a difference? I'll tell you something I don't know either. There are days when I feel good about what I did. Days when I see Marcus smile, and I think, it was worth it. And there are days when I wake up at 3 a.m, remembering the sound of the father's skull breaking, and I wonder what kind of person does something like that. But the reality is this. We live in a world where predators hide behind cassocks, uniforms, respectable titles. They hide in plain sight because they know people don't want to believe that evil can look so normal, so trustworthy. And when victims speak, no one believes them. Because it's easier to think that a child is confused or lying than to accept that someone respectable is a monster. That's the world we live in. Gubiya. And sometimes in that world, the only possible justice is the one you take into your own hands. I'm not saying what I did should be an example. I'm not saying everyone should go out and take justice into their own hands. What I'm saying is that I understand why it happens. I understand the desperation that leads you to that point, the helplessness, the rage. If you are listening to this and have gone through something similar, if someone has hurt you and no one believes you, listen to me closely. You are not alone. Your truth matters. Your pain is real. And even if the world fails you, even if institutions fail you, even if your own family fails you, you have to keep speaking up. Keep seeking help. Keep fighting. Because maybe, just maybe, you'll find someone who will listen to you, someone who will believe you, someone who will help you get justice the right way. I didn't have that luck. I had to be my own justice. And now I live with the consequences of that, good and bad. But you can have a different path. Don't let what happened to me make you think that violence is the only answer. Fight. Scream, insist. Look for organizations that help victims of abuse. Look for specialized therapists. Look for trusted adults who know how to listen. And if all that fails, well, at least you tried to do things the right way. To finish this, I want to ask you something. If you've made it this far, if you've listened to my complete story, let me know in the comments what you think. Seriously, I want to know. Do you think I did well? Do you think I went too far? Is there justification for what I did? And also, if you have a similar story, you need to share it. This is a safe space. We are a community of people who have experienced things no one else understands, and we support each other. Oh, and please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I know it sounds weird to ask you that, after telling you I killed someone, but that's how YouTube works. If you want to keep watching real stories like this, stories no one else dares to tell you, need to click that subscribe button. It's the red button that says subscribe right below the video. Super easy. And activate the bell icon so you get notifications every time we upload a new story. Every day there's new content that will leave you speechless. I'm sorry the video was so long. I know it's like 40-something minutes, but these stories can't be told halfway. They can't be summarized in 10 minutes. Real life is complicated, it's messy, it's long. And if I wanted you to understand why I did what I did, you needed to know every detail. Thank you for making it to the end. Seriously, thank you for listening to me. Thank you for not closing the video after 2 minutes. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to vent to someone who doesn't judge me prematurely. I don't have many people to talk about this with. Well, actually, I don't have anyone except my mom. And even though she understands me, she also carries her own pain. So being able to tell you, even if it's through a screen, even if I don't know, you means a lot to me. We are a community here, a community of people who have experienced tragedies, betrayals, abuses, losses. A community that understands that sometimes life puts you in situations where there are no right answers, where every option is terrible, and you can only choose the least bad one. And if you are part of that community, if you have lived through something that broke you, I want you to know that I see you, that your pain is valid, that you don't have to carry it all alone. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay to be angry with the world. It's okay not to have all the answers. It's okay to question God, justice, everything. Because when things like this happen to you, when you live what I lived, easy answers no longer work. Blind faith is no longer enough. You need something more real, more raw, more honest. And that's what I try to give on this channel. Real stories unfiltered, without forced happy endings. Just the truth of teenagers who have lived through hells and are trying to survive. So stay, be a part of this, and when you have your own story to tell, write it in the comments or send it to the channel. Maybe we'll tell it in a future video, because everyone deserves to be heard. Everyone deserves their truth. Thanks again for joining me on this. See you in the next video, and remember, you are not alone, never.